We are going to present the article Multicriteria Techniques Applied to Social Media in Public Sector, the use of Twitter by different law enforcement authorities' profiles. This article has been created by the following researchers: Esther Guijarro, Cristina Santandreu Mascarell, Lourdes Canós d'Aroz, Rebeca Díez, and Eugenia Babiloni, from the Universitat Politécnica de Valencia. Social marketing influences the target's behavior and contributes to improving society. The success of a social marketing program is measured by its efficacy and pertinence. If Internet has contributed to potentiating the use of online communication, social networks have turned into a strategic communication platform. These social networks offer organizations a tool to build and maintain relationships with its target public, and Twitter consolidates as the tool most used by organizations for their social marketing communication strategies. It's a network of social mobilization with considerable spreading potential and viral capacity. We find examples of social marketing in non-governmental entities and mostly in public organizations. They use Twitter as social communication route, but there is a scarce development of formal documents contributing to plan and understand its adequate operation. Therefore, it's necessary to propose and develop analytical frameworks that allow to recognize success factors citizens' interaction. We suggest a multicriteria model to analyze the use of Twitter by 4 public entities: National Police, Mossos d'Esquadra, which are agents of the Catalan Autonomous Police, Metropolitan Police, and Europol, as well as to identify and assess the success factors when used for spreading social marketing messages. In order to do this, we suggest analytical hierarchical process, or AHP, discrete multicriteria technique, which allows obtaining the priorities associated to a group of alternative on scenarios with many stakeholders and criteria. The AHP has been often used for marketing multicriteria problem solving, but it has not been specifically applied to a problem framed on social marketing. This is a pioneer paper in this area. The AHP methodology is composed by 5 steps. Firstly, the objective of the case study must be defined, as well as to establish the problem in detail. In this paper, the aim is to determine which of the public entities analyzed uses the social networks the best when it comes to issue social marketing messages. From the scope of existing social network, the analysis has been mainly focused on Twitter due to its participatory and open approach. The analysis includes a 6-month period from October 1st, 2017 until the 31st of March 2018, and it mainly uses Twintonomy as data collecting tool. Secondly, we selected the case study entities. In this case, we analyzed 4 law enforcement authorities' profiles, where social networks are mostly used with a social marketing character. Thirdly, with the collaboration of an expert, we selected the group of variables relevant for the suggested uses, namely those features explaining the good practices in the use of social networks as social marketing instrument. We used the AHP methodology to include and quantify the latter. In this study, we selected a total of 22 variables grouped into 4 clusters. The first one includes variables related to the social and technological context. The second one includes organization-related explanatory variables. The third cluster gathers all variables associated with the activity of profiles analyzed on Twitter. And lastly, the fourth cluster includes variables related to the impact of that activity on the rest of the Twitter community. In fourth place, we created a hierarchical model as baseline for the analysis of the use of Twitter in other entities. In order to do this, the problem is profiled as a tree, where the upper node represents the objective. As aforementioned, in this case, the goal is to determine what profile uses Twitter the best as social marketing communication tool. In the lower nodes, there are the analyzed alternatives, which are precisely the 4 profiles selected. And in the intermediate nodes, we position the 22 explanatory variables group into the 4 clusters: context, organization, activity, and impact. Once the problem was modeled as a tree, the next step was performing the calculations needed to obtain the alternatives and variables priorities, namely to determine the relevance of each explanatory variable and of each analyzed profile in such a way that we identify, on the one hand, what is the profile that uses Twitter the best as social communication tool, and on the other, to identify what variables are more relevant to achieve said objective. In this step, we use the spread choosing which, through some questionnaires, determines those priorities using pairwise comparison tests. These questionnaires are transferred later to decision-making matrices, completed using the fundamental scale of Satie, and the eigenvectors are calculated, which are nothing else than those weights or ponderation of variables and alternatives. Once calculations were done, we obtain what is the analyzed profile showing a more efficient use of Twitter from the social marketing perspective. In this case, it's the national police profile. Furthermore, results achieved are of a great practical use since they provide information about what variables and clusters are more relevant, which allows designing more efficient social communication campaigns. In this sense, the cluster impact of account is the most representative. This is a logical result because when social marketing campaigns are designed, they do not simply aim to provide a message, but it's also intended that said message influences people's behaviors, and that influence is assessed precisely through the variables included in the cluster. In fact, moving the level of detail down to explanatory variables, we observe that the number of followers is the most important variable, followed by number of retweets received and efficiency. This study introduces for the first time the use of AHP technique to social marketing, and it's not only a specific case study, but instead its results can be extrapolated to other entities performing this kind of marketing, because we could identify the relevant variables, and that must be designed thoroughly in the communication strategic plans. This study could be completed with a qualitative analysis of messages delivered by studied profiles, which would provide additional information helpful to understand who is talking as well as from what context and, essentially, what is the goal of user messages.